Jonathan Gavoni here of DraftExpress.com. We're here at the D-League Showcase once again, sitting here with my man Michael Bourne of the Portland Trail Blazers, Director of NBA Scouting. How's it going, Mike?
Great, really good.
How's the D-League Showcase treating you so far?
It's been great. I think this is a great event. Been, I think, just about every showcase they've had, and I think it's a great opportunity to come in and have a chance to see a lot of players. Obviously, you get to see 16 games in 4 days. Saves on your budget. You get to stay in the same hotel for 4 straight nights, and you get a chance to evaluate a lot of good players.
So when you come here to evaluate the D-League Showcase, what are some of the things that you look for that might translate to the NBA level?
Well, I think first of all, people come in, you have a pretty good idea of the guys in the league, so it's not like you're coming in here cold turkey and not knowing who the guys are. So, I think might be specific players that you're looking in to come in and watch a guy like Cartier Martin, Morris Allman, and I think part of it just depends on that individual player. You're looking at just to see the improvement that maybe they've made from the last time you saw them in the D-League, or if you saw those guys in Summer League. So I think it's just kind of individual based upon the player.
Your background is a little bit different and kind of gives you a unique perspective on evaluating the D-League. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I've spent 7 years in the minor leagues. Spent 4 in the IBA, which was the International Basketball Association. I spent a year in the ABA, and then I spent 2 years actually coaching in the D-League as an assistant. And, so I think obviously it's a great evaluation tool for me to have, being that not just, have played in the minor league, been an assistant, been a head coach, but also I think being in the D-League and, having a chance to just go through that experience, that I understand sort of where these players are coming from. And, I spent a year in the ABA coaching with Kevin Pritchard and sort of dealing with the guys that we had at that level as well. But it's just, it helps you as a coach and as an evaluator sort of understand what these guys are going through and, trying to not just evaluate them but also help them. We had Anthony Tolliver, who we had just called up, and he was with us for a short time now. He's back here, but even being able to talk to him today and being able to help him understand how he can have a better chance of sticking in the NBA. Maybe it's something individual that I see with him. It could be the experience that he had with us, and just trying to keep him maybe focused and understand that there's a chance that he's going to be in the NBA again this year, and to keep pushing and staying positive with his game.
So you've followed minor league basketball obviously for as long as anybody in this building. How has it evolved over the last few years?
Well, yeah, I started in '97 in the minor leagues, and spent 7 years, and then obviously got into the scouting and been with the Blazers now. So, it's definitely improved. I think back in '97 when I first was involved in the IBA, there was a lot of different minor leagues. And now it's basically condensed into one really, really strong league. So you don't have the CBA anymore. You don't have the IBA, the USBL, some of those leagues that were around. So it's now all condensed under the NBA's umbrella. And when I was actually involved with the IBA and then I went to the ABA, I think once the NBA came in and was going to start their own minor league, I think there was a lot of people excited because they knew that the NBA would give it really good direction, would give it financial support. Across the league, you knew we were going to have a lot of consistency with, gym arrangements and game preparation and game operations and all those things. And so, it's definitely taken a big step in the right direction. Now you've got 16 teams, and I think the D-League started at 6, built to 8. They've had some franchises move, but and you've got 16 solid teams. And I think one of the things, too, when you're looking at is just how the talent, if you go from 6 teams to 16 teams, is your talent going to get worse because you've got 160 guys now versus 60? But I think, Chris Alpert's done a really good job. Milt Newton, when he was first involved as player personnel for the D-League, Chris has done a really good job. And, I think also you look at Europe, and maybe not as many guys are going to Europe because of the economy, so guys are looking to stay here in the States and kind of promote their games to NBA teams. And I think the talent level has gotten better and better every year. It may not be huge jumps, but just to go from, whether you're going from 10 teams to 14, just to maintain your talent there is great, but I think it's continued to get better. So, again, this showcase is a terrific chance for NBA people to come in here and really get a good chance to evaluate the guys.
From a scouting perspective, this is the third day of the showcase, the third game of the third day. How do you stay focused and continue to lock in on these guys and try not to miss any details that crucial details that your team might need for the future?
Yeah, well, I think part of it is just have an appreciation for you get a chance to see 16 games in 4 days. So I think if you come in, understand, look, if I went to see all these teams single games, it would take me forever to try to see this many games and the money that you would spend. So, instead of me having to worry about traveling and being in all these different hotels and all the money you're going to spend, if you sort of have that approach coming in, look, I got a chance to see a bunch of games in a short amount of time, I think that helps. And the other thing, too, is I'm a basketball junkie, and I would much rather sit down and watch 4 games a day and not have to travel and do all that stuff. You're right here. You're in the same arena. You don't have to have a rental car. You're not at a different hotel and all that stuff. And the other thing too is I think because I was in the minor leagues, I enjoy the minor leagues. I love coming and watching these games. And so for me to sit, if I had to sit through a week of these games, I enjoy it because, again, I think, when you're looking at the time you're not having to spend going to other places, but also just being in the minor leagues. I'm a basketball guy. I love basketball, and it's a great chance to evaluate, talent. So it's really a nice situation.
So there's 16 teams here. Every team has about 10 players on each team, 160 players. How many guys out of those 160 are actually legitimate NBA players?
Well, I think it depends a little bit on, I talked to NBA.com about this a little bit. On guys that you would say are legitimate call-up guys for this year, you might say there's probably 10 to 15. I think NBA teams, part of it just depends on what an NBA team's looking for. So, Sunday Out of Gaines is called up to Utah. I think when you're looking at a call-up guy, we call up Tolliver, Chris Hunter's called up, Mike Harris had been called up. When you're looking at the guys that are called up, a lot of times it might be guys that have spent 2 or 3 years in the D League. Maybe they've played in Europe. So that when those guys are coming in, you can put them into an NBA game and they can play for you. But I also think there's some really good guys that are potential call-up guys this year, but I think when you start looking at the following year or maybe 2 years down the road, an Alonzo G., Curtis Geralds, some of those guys that would be considered rookies now maybe they're called up this year, maybe they're not, but I think those are guys that 2 or 3 years from now you'll be talking about those guys like just so you would talk about a Morris Almond or an Anthony Tolliver, because those guys have spent their time in the D League, maybe they've played overseas, and so there's going to be maybe a little more interest from NBA teams with those guys simply because of their experience. And Nerl Barron, he's played in the NBA, but I think Chris and the NBA has done a really good job of putting in some really good young players that just need to have that seasoning, that experience of playing in the D League, playing in Summer League, going to vets camps, and sort of just picking up that experience that I think there's quite a few young guys that have a chance to be in the NBA. So, you may say there might be 20 or 25 guys here total that maybe it won't happen for maybe 8 or 10 of them this year, but I think as those guys continue to progress, that 4 or 5 years from now, there could be 20 or 25 guys from this that potentially have a chance to be on an NBA roster. And maybe they're not great players, maybe they're not starters, but to be on a roster and help a team, I definitely think there's that many.
So you guys have an open roster spot right now. What are the chances that you guys turn to the D League for a 10-day here?
Well, we're always looking. That's part of the reason I'm here. We had Anthony, and just because of just all the injuries we've had, we really liked Anthony, but part of it was just we felt like we needed sort of a positional change, and we needed a guy that could play more inside than Anthony could. We had signed Shavlik Randolph, and we had to waive him just because of the 10-day January 10th coming up on guaranteed contracts. But we're always looking. We're always trying to figure out not just how we can improve our team for the remainder of the season also, but just because of all the injuries we've had to battle this year, and just trying to find a guy that we think can step in and help us.
Mike, I know you're itching to get back to the game, so appreciate all the info as always, and best of luck this season, all right?